Alright, welcome back to Flight Sim 2024 and welcome to the Cowansim Bell 206L3. So this is, I believe, a long ranger. And we're parked on the ramp here at a very cloudy, overcast George Airport right at the bottom of South Africa. And for today's charter, we've been chartered to carry a handful of passengers from here at George Airport. They landed on a SAF Air flight that came in a bit earlier. We're taking them up to the campsite at the Caribou National Park, which is about an hour's flight from here, basically directly north past Oudtshoorn, and up to the Caribou National Park. Now the issue is the weather. It looks okay here, and flying around here at basically sea level is okay, but we need to cross the mountains around Oudtshoorn, which is going to be the issue. Let's go and open this up. While I'm here, I might as well do this. Let's just bump our fuel up, and we'll just do this. We're reasonably full, but I want to go and get rid of some of these things. So wire cutters we can keep. We don't have that. Floats we don't need, so we can make that 0. Skid steps can stay, and the searchlight we can get rid of. Cool. Now if we go here to flight planner, so we're down here at George, and you can see we're going up. Now this area here is all nice and flat and open, and then we just get into this kind of mountainous area in the national park, but this is the part that I'm concerned about. So here's Oudtshoorn here. We've got to cross first of all this range and then this range as well, and all the weather is kind of sitting in this area, so that might actually be impossible looking at the map, but we're going to try and see what we can do. So let's jump aboard and find out if I remember how to fly this aircraft. The other issue is there's a pole right in front of us, so I'm gonna have to be very careful on startup to not hit the pole. Also, this will be my first flight with the new HeloSAS system, so the stability augmentation system that Cowansim have recently introduced. Okay, battery, generator, position light, anti-collision light, avionics. Okay, fuel valve is on, that's all set, cool. Okay, let's get our route set up. So we can go map there, and we can go flight plan here. Now what I have done is that waypoint doesn't exist, or that helipad doesn't exist in the Navigraph database. No, what am I doing? Where's the backspace button there? So I made a custom waypoint, Caribou National Park, using the coordinates. So that should have us going to the right place. There we go. So, oh, it's bang on 100 miles. Didn't even know that. Right, got the terrain on because we're definitely going to need that. Cool, we can have that set up like so. We can put this to 2000 and alt on, right, landing lights, and then I guess we can just fire up. Okay, now, the reason why that hole concerns me is I've always found this helicopter and the 222 quite twitchy and difficult to like easily get into a hover on takeoff, so I generally tend to squirrel around a bit. Oh, there's rain starting on the windshield already. That's not a good sign. So I'm gonna have to try and be super careful here to not let that happen. Right, have my head tracking. Let's just get that centered. Yeah, see, it already just leaps forward as soon as you put in any power. Okay. That wasn't good, but we survived. So I don't know how realistic that is. It's probably just me being bad. But yeah, it's the same issues I've always had with some of the helicopters. With the Alouette, with the H145 and H160. What else? The MH60. Never had issues like that. Right. We are on our way. There's a bunch of giraffes on the highway. That's concerning. Now, we need to try and find a gap to go through here. The only other thing we could maybe do is pretend to go IFR and climb up above the clouds. But I mean, we'd have to go... I'd have to check on the map and see what altitude we'd have to be at, but it's gonna be fairly high, which is possible, but then we just have to hope that it's clear enough on the other side to come down again. I don't see any way through along here. Oh, nice. We're now getting low-level, like, fog, which we're somehow already above, but it is growing. Yeah, I guess we're going IFR because we are already now IFR, technically. Right, then I guess we just keep in a steady climb here. And let me have a look at the charts. 9,400 feet. Sure. Okay, if I look along our path here, we're gonna have to do about 7,000. No, 9,000 we gotta do to make it over these peaks. So let's see how this goes. with that weather change that Active Sky just did, it brought in some more low-level fog, but this layer of clouds has cleared quite a bit. But keep in mind, this part of the mountains here, this is the lower part. So it's only going to get worse. I need to find a way to turn that GPS down. I haven't been able to find anywhere where I can do that because it's super loud. Okay, when it does it again, I'm going to turn it off. Okay, we can turn it back on if we end up like full IMC. Okay, so far we're alright, but the terrain is just gonna steadily keep pushing us higher and higher until we end up in these clouds. Okay, nice pass for us to go through here. That helps a lot. Look at all that red though. Okay, so we're kind of in between the two layers here at the moment, but just looking at that red, we're gonna have to climb again significantly. So I wonder if it's not worth just climbing through this layer now, which gives us longer to increase altitude, so we can climb slower but keep our overall speed higher. So I think we're going to do that, which means we're going to have to go through this cloud layer above us. Very cool area to fly in, though. Yeah, we're coming up to 3,000 feet. Okay, let's try out the new SAS. So if I get that on, it should just basically keep us where we are. Right, and now we have a heading mode, so we can continue to climb on this heading. And looks like there's quite a bit of rain over there. Okay, 3,500. I think I can turn the head tracking off for now that the autopilot is on. Flip this over to GPS, so we might actually be able to use that just now. Okay, look at how much of that red we've soaked up. So maybe, I mean, we're currently at 4,000 feet. Maybe we can head to about 5,000 and just keep an eye on the terrain. 5,000 might have us sitting in these clouds though, which we probably don't want. We're going to catch up with our GPS route shortly, so we can probably just go into nav mode. We're only 1.25 nautical miles to the east of it. It does say GPS approved for VFR use only. Yeah, we're gonna have to keep going. We're coming up to 6,000. We've still got some red on there. So I think we might be okay at 7. But that does mean we're gonna be squarely in the clouds. When I looked at the charts though, the weather kind of cleared up once we passed this point. So we might actually be okay. Okay, let's go altitude hold. And unfortunately, I think this is going to be our view, at least for bit of time going forward. Hopefully not all the way. Okay, about 116 knots. That's pretty good. Can bump that up ever so slightly, I think. So about 120, very nice. Okay, so I don't know what the flight sim planner was calculating our speed to be, because it said this flight was going to be an hour. We've been flying for about 20 minutes and we've got 14 minutes left. Okay, we are pushing that speed a little too hard. Let's just bring the collective back a bit. Okay there, so about 15 minutes to go. starting to see terrain down there again, so we're not all that high up actually. We're about to cross the highest point of our journey. Then maybe we drop down a bit again so we're not sitting in the soup. Also, let's go nav mode. That was pretty close, but we're still good. Okay, the next challenge is going to be getting out of the clouds, and hopefully we actually have some visibility down low. So you can see the terrain here is flat, but it's not low. Look, it's all green down here. It's still brown here, so we're probably the same as kind of this part over here. Not quite as high as this, but still nothing like when we took off from George. So hopefully there's still a bit of space underneath these clouds. Our time to destination is getting longer somehow. I think once we cross this part, we can even descend a bit. I think the winds are really pushing us. Look at our airspeed. So here's an interesting thing. We have a speed hold down here. Can we engage that and altitude? No, I didn't think so. Okay, let's go into speed hold. And we can drop the collective a bit. We can start descending. Let's see if we can get below the clouds before we start seeing red everywhere on the terrain radar. Yeah, you're getting kind of bumpy here in the clouds. Must be something going on with the wind. Our ET is getting higher. It's ground speed 142 knots now. It is getting bumpy. Just make out the ground through the clouds below us. Okay, 6,400 now. I don't think there's any gap under this layer. I'm just gonna have to hope that the cloud clears before the game, before the national park. Okay, my only other theory about this is in the waypoint, in the flight plan, this isn't our actual destination. So let's go back here. This should be for the next waypoint, right? Yeah, it's also fluctuating around. Okay. Right, coming up to 6,000. I think we're gonna have to keep it at 6,000. I don't think there's any open air underneath us. Okay, down to 17 minutes. You see, every time we get bounced around and that ground speed changes, that calculation changes. So I think it's just that Okay, nothing much has changed. Still okay in terms of terrain. Down to about 15 minutes to go. We've been flying for almost 40 minutes. So maybe that 1 hour is going to be perfectly accurate. Okay, I just want to bring this up again. So not too far, and it's right next to Beaufort West. Now, Beaufort West Meta says broken at 100 feet, overcast at 1,400. I think we're in trouble here. Yeah, we got plenty of fuel on board at least. So, all good. Even if we need to head all the way back to George, we can do that. Okay, I just need to be careful on that speed again. Right, everything else is in the green. And look at our radar altitude. We're still more than 2,500 feet up, so we do have some room to descend. Yeah, I'm wondering if we should reduce our altitude a bit more. Beaufort West is around 3,500 feet. Because it's up in that little section, I reckon the helipad is maybe a little bit higher. Like 3.7 maybe? Oh wow, only 2,900. Oh wait, what's Beaufort West at? Also, okay. I thought it was higher than that. Oh, I suppose you've got these areas here that are much higher. This is going to be really interesting if the visibility is bad. At least we can come all the way in following this road. Nine and a half minutes. 21 miles. Okay, I think we're gonna go speed hold again. Let's just slowly bring the altitude down. So it's super flat here. Let's maybe aim for about 4,000 feet. Okay, it is clearing gradually as we're descending. Okay, 10 miles, 4.5 minutes. Looks like we might actually be okay here. Okay, let's hold our altitude here at 4,000. Look at that water. Actually looks quite windy out there, which would explain a lot. You see how we're bouncing around still. Now that looks like rain up ahead. That could really ruin our chances of getting in here. It's looking really good, but that layer is not very encouraging. Also because we're getting closer to the mountains now. Okay, we're 4 miles out. Okay, I think it's time we ditch this guy. Right, so there's the valley. We can just follow that road there. Okay, visibility is actually much better down here. And then the next challenge is going to be landing this very twitchy helicopter. Especially with the wind knocking us around like it is. Look at that. Wow. Because I suppose when you have windy conditions, it just all swirls around between the mountains on either side here. Right, here is the campsite. The helipad is down there next to that building. Okay, I think it's going to be easier to come from that side to land uphill. Right, we just need to be careful of that bush. Okay, once we clear that bush, there it is. And we are free to set her down. Like so. Oh, wrong button. Okay, we can switch the landing lights off. Is that shutting down completely? Because you're supposed to have to click this. Okay, it is already done. So I did it from my HOTAS. It obviously just ignores that detent. Okay, that's good. Then we can do avionics off, generator off. That's fine. Lights and battery. Right, and welcome to... Whoa. Okay, when I move, the wind gets a lot worse. That wind is crazy. Welcome to the campsite here for the Karoo National Park. That was an interesting flight. I didn't expect to spend all of it in the clouds, but we did. And in the end, managed to make it down safely. So I think that's probably only like the second time I've flown the Long Ranger on the channel. It's a cool helicopter. I don't know, I just find the controls very twitchy. At the end of the flight, the landing is actually easier because you've got everything trimmed out. In the beginning, you need like massive joystick movements to control it. But yeah, that's probably just me. Anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of the video. As always, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy it, if you want to follow the channel, you know what to do down below. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.